Happy midnight, everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of Professor Moonshine's Redstone 101. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the observer, and it's a fairly simple component, so let's just jump right into it. This is an observer. Quite simply, observers observe block changes going on in this block space right here, directly in front of them. You can kind of tell by the way that they've got that stern face, they're just looking. They're looking at that block space. So whenever there's a change of a block state within this block space that the observer is looking at, it's going to output a redstone pulse out of its back. So if I were to take a lamp right here and break this glass block, you can see the observer saw that happen and emitted a pulse that lit up this lamp. And that's pretty much all an observer does. It just observes the block space directly in front of its face, and if there's a change in that block space, it emits a redstone pulse. Now we'll take a look at a few examples of what that block state change could be. So here I've constructed a very simple circuit. All this circuit is meant to do is show when the observer sees something. So if the observer is able to see it, it's going to power this block, which will power both the redstone lamp and this note block back here. So if the redstone observer can see what's going on, we'll get a light and a ding. Using this contraption, let's take a look at all the things that an observer can see. An observer can detect the placing of a block, the breaking of a block, the moving of a block into the block space, and the moving of a block out of the block space, soil becoming tilled, crops being planted, crops growing, stripping logs, fences and walls connecting to other fences, cauldrons filling with water, the various stages of a drip leaf drooping down, jukeboxes playing CDs, observers can actually detect when a water source becomes a bubble column, and of course, observers can detect when other redstone components are activated. Here's a rather interesting one. Observers can also detect when leaves are connected to wood, and it can do this for a radius of up to 6 blocks. So if I go, 6 leaf blocks out, the observer can detect that these leaves are connected to wood or disconnected from wood. So that one's really unique and kind of weird. Here's another cool one that's actually used in Redstone quite a lot to transfer signals down. So this observer is looking at this wall right here, and if I go ahead and place a wall on top of it, it causes all of these walls to have this, indent in them, and the observer is able to detect that. So here we are actually in replay mode, so you guys can see this in real time. As you can see, every time I break or destroy a wall at the top, the observer is able to take a signal and light the lamp. Again, this is used in Redstone a lot to transfer signals vertically, because you can make this wall as tall as you want and be able to send a signal downwards. So yeah, you guys get the picture. Those were just a couple examples. Basically, an observer just detects when the block it's looking at is changing in some way, and if it does, it sends a single redstone pulse out of its back. So one of the things an observer can detect is another observer going off. So I'll go ahead and place an observer right here. Now, if this observer detects something and sends a redstone signal, this second observer is able to see that this one fired and also fire. So we'll see that here. I'll place a block. So you can see that when this observer detected the block, it fired. And then the second observer detected that this observer fired and itself fired. We can use this principle to form what's called an observer chain. An observer chain is simply a chain reaction of observers observing the one in front of them and passing a signal along. So we have a huge observer chain that goes up, curves around, and we have our note block lamp set up. So if we cause a block change for this first observer, we can see that signal eventually makes it up to this unit. Now, of course, that's happening because as soon as this first one fires, the next one fires, and then the next one, and so on. And so they pass the pulse all the way through this chain and over to our little machine here. Now, observers can't detect everything in the game, so I'm just going to go ahead and give a few examples of some things that observers cannot detect. Chests opening and closing, or having things put in from them and taken out of them. Mobs walking around in the block space. Items going onto the block space. Bells ringing. For some reason, an observer can't detect this. Armor stands being placed or equipped with armor and items. Putting food on campfires. You guys get the idea. All that to say, observers can't detect everything that goes on in the game that you might expect them to, so just be careful. So guys, that's pretty much it for observers. Let's go ahead and review what we learned. Observers look at the block space that they're facing, and if there's a block change in that block space, they send a redstone pulse out of their back. These kinds of block changes can include anything from placing and destroying blocks, moving blocks in and out of the block space, crops growing, changes like that. They cannot detect things like entities moving through them, items being thrown in those block spaces, that kind of thing. Now, of course, observers can also detect when other redstone components are activated, including other observers, and this leads us to observer chains. Observer chains are where observers are facing, looking at one another, so that when the first one is activated, it passes the redstone pulse along to the others. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and take an observer quiz. For problem number 1, I just want you guys to think about if an observer is going to be able to detect the following items. There's going to be a few parts. The first is if I place a red wool. Go ahead and think about it. Pause the video if you need. Can the observer detect when I place red wool? Got your answer? We'll give it a shot. It can. Observers can detect placing and destroying of blocks. This next one's going to require a little bit of intuition since I didn't show you guys this, but think about if I shear this into a jack-o'-lantern, do you think the observer could detect that or not? Pause the video and think about it if you want. Got your answer? Alright. Observers can detect shearing of pumpkins. If you got that one wrong, I don't blame you because I didn't show it on camera, but hopefully you were able to intuit that a pumpkin going from being regular pumpkin to a jack-o'-lantern is a change of block states, and in general, observers can detect changes of block states. And lastly, I've hidden all of my valuables in this chest, and I want to have an alarm system. Can an observer detect if someone were to open this chest and steal my diamonds? Think about it for a minute, pause if you need. Alright, I'll go ahead and try. As you can see, we had no problem robbing the diamonds. This is because observers cannot detect a chest being opened or things moving in and out of the chest. Let's now move on to problem number 2. Here's problem number 2, and I want you guys to think about what will happen when I update this observer by placing a block on it. Go ahead and think about your answer for a minute. Pause the video if you need. Alright, I'll go ahead and do it. And you can see our circuit lit up. If you got that right, good job, and if you didn't, no problem. Let's go over why. Recall that observers can detect that another observer has fired. So when this observer fires from having the block update, the one that's looking at it also fires, and it's going to pass along that signal through what's called the observer chain until it reaches our system here. Alright guys, that's going to conclude our episode on observers. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you have any observer related questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I will get to as many as I can. If you guys enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe, but no worries if not. I'll see you guys in the next episode, and until then, shine on, little stars.